Alright, so we did win the die roll. That's good. Good news. And our opener is solid. I'm going to keep it. We can play Baleful Strix on turn 2, but we're still pretty far away from Sundering Titan and Blightstone Colossus. We have also drawn our single copy of Strip Mine. So we'll see how we want to proceed. We're definitely looking for some sort of ramp, whether it's something like a Mox or Signet or Gilded Lotus, something that's going to help us accelerate into our big cards here. Alright, it looks like our opponent may be playing a green mana rep deck of some sort. Well, we shall see. Really just like Baleful Strix as a Magic card. Just does so much. When you play it on turn 2, your opponent can kill it, but it just can hold down the fort. You can attack if you want to with it, clearly. But yeah, it looks like our opponent is playing a mana ramp deck of some sort, so we can actually just play our Hangerback Walker for 2 here, which I like. I think we want to do it, so let's do that. And we can also just get in with the Baleful Strix. I like Hangerback Walker a lot in our deck because we can easily play it for 1 or 6 depending on the game state. And right now, playing it for 2 is kind of in the middle. And our draw here is a little bit on the medium side. But it does look like our opponent is some sort of dedicated ramp deck. Sheldock Isle is an interesting one. We also have Strip Mine, but it's not really clear to me that we want to Strip Mine something at the moment. So I like playing the Temple here. And we see a Hedron Archive on top. It's a reasonable card to have on top of our deck, I think, right now. We think we want to be leveling up the Hangerback Walker now. And we could have dealt our opponent 2 with it, but this line makes a little bit more sense. And we'll see what our opponent is actually able to do with these Eldrazi spawns that are going to come into play off this Awakening Zone. We also see a bunch of colors that our opponent now has access to. So we'll see if our opponent does have a big spell of some sort to kind of punish our draw. So definitely curious to see what this is going to be. Okay, it's actually a Garruk Wildspeaker. Interesting. So we'll see if our opponent makes a beast with it, or instead it's going to be untapping 2 lands. So we have to be wary of the fact that this card can allow these Eldrazi spawn tokens to all of a sudden overrun us. And our opponent is going for the level up here on the Tree Speaker. So we have Strip Mine, which we could use this turn. We don't necessarily need to, though. Definitely going to go ahead and attack both of our creatures at Garruk. And the Hedron Archive is going to allow us to have access to Sundering Titan next turn, and it looks like our opponent did let Garruk die. So that means they could be easily ramping to something for next turn. So if that's the case, we definitely want to have the Strip Mine available to us. So I am going to play the Hedron Archive here. And yeah, I think we just go ahead and Strip Mine away one of the forests. And that's going to allow the Sundering Titan to take out our opponent's last 3 lands that they have in play, or even 4 lands now that we see a mountain. So the Sundering Titan could just potentially be absolutely brutal here. Unless our opponent has, something very impressive to play on this turn. I'm very happy with the spot we're in. Okay, it's going to be Sneak Attack, which is an interesting one, but our opponent does not have the red to actually be able to activate it this turn, even if that one card left in our opponent's hand happens to be a creature that we're very worried about. And we drew Villainous Wealth, which is also another card that happy to have in hand. So going to start off with an attack. We'll see if our opponent wants to do anything about the Hangerback Walker or not. Either way, though, this turn is going to involve destroying the full amount of lands with Sundering Titan. So that's pretty nice. It does not happen too often for that to be the case. So literally destroyed 5 different lands with Sundering Titan and passing the turn. And our opponent is definitely in a rough spot. This does mean that we may not be able to cast our Villainous Wealth without the black source, but you know what? Not too worried about it at the moment. And I think the Sundering Titan was the safest play because now our opponent doesn't have red mana for Sneak Attack. And our draw step was actually Tezzeret. So Tezzeret was a good draw step for the turn, absolutely. Going to attack here for starters. And I think we have a few options in terms of what we want to get with Tezzeret, but Black Lotus is the one that comes to mind. Crucible of Worlds is also another card we could consider. But yeah, I think Black Lotus makes the most sense to start off here. So I'm going to do that for 0. And that's going to allow us to get our Black Lotus. And I think we just put the Apex Predator underneath this Sheldock Isle and pass back. So yeah, this is just a great spot for us. Next turn we can Villainous Wealth if we so choose. And yep, our opponent's just going to concede here. So that worked strictly according to game plan, which is always nice. And now we can consider a bit more if there's something we want to cut. So I think we still play the Winter Orb just because it's one of the centerpiece cards to our deck, even though it's worse against a deck like our opponent's, with a bunch of acceleration. Spell Pierce does not seem like something we need to be doing or even want to be doing. So, yeah, there's also Skull Clamp here, but I think we just want to be playing this exact configuration after board. Pretty happy with it. There's not a single card that we really need to take out, so I'm going to go ahead and submit it. And our opponent, presumably here, is going to be on the play. Alright, going to keep this. Though we have to tread carefully with our Oath of Druids for sure. Looking at our hand, there are 3 creatures in it. So, yeah, I'm going to start with this Temple of Mystery here. And we've got a Den Protector on top. That's an interesting one. I don't think we need it right now. So I'm going to bottom it. We don't have anything that looks like it's immediately going to go into the graveyard. And Den Protector traditionally is a card that you would rather have later in the game than earlier in the game. So going off of that, pretty happy with the choice. And just going to play the Gruul Signet here. Wait for the right opportunity to potentially get this Oath of Druids into play, but it looks like our opponent is not doing too much, which is actually a little bit concerning because we would like to play our Oath of Druids and be able to search for something with it. So the question now becomes, do we sit around and wait, or do we start deploying some of our spells? And I think we can actually just play the Rashad Import and wait a little bit. And so, okay, here is a Mox Emerald. And it looks like our opponent is going here for a Freya Lease, which is pretty good. And they are going to make an elf here and pass back. So, alright, we've got the port. We can port our opponent's island, but we have to be worried about the Freya Lease. It's just like one of the best possible cards against us. It can destroy our Signet. It can destroy. It does destroy enchantments as well. So we have to be extremely concerned at this point that our opponent's gonna destroy one of our most important. Destroy basically anything we could play. I think we still run out the Oath here, and we can play the Trinket Mage as well. And yep, let's go ahead and do that. So we can Trinket Mage, and just go ahead and get the Black Lotus here. So we'll see what our opponent does, but it's definitely not a great spot for us. Alright, it's going to be natural order, so let's see what this natural order can find. It's Progenitus. So that's horrible news for us, obviously. And yeah, it's just unfortunate. So our opponent is gonna downtick the Freya Lease to get rid of our Oath of Druids now. And I don't think we have an out to Progenitus, unfortunately. So just gonna go ahead and go to the next one here. Frey seems just like an absolute nightmare for us. So I think we may want to board and spell Pierce because of that card. And the potential to get our opponent with Spell Pierce. So, yeah, let's do that. In terms of what we want to sideboard out for the Spell Pierce, that's a pretty reasonable question. I'm not sure we actually need Crucible of Worlds. It's great with Strip Mine, but if we don't have Strip Mine, it's a lot less exciting. So yeah, I'm fine with cutting the Crucible of Worlds. There's also Wall of Blossoms. We could pretty easily cut Wall of Blossoms. We didn't see that much our opponent has that's just going to attack us on the ground in a fair sort of a way. And if we do draw Crucible of Worlds plus Strip Mine, that's obviously a very nice combination to have. Alright, let's go ahead and I think we just play the Wall of Blossoms. Let's go with this. Boarding in the Spell Pierce. We are going to be on the play here. We have Black Lotus in hand, so that's good. We also have Strip Mine. So yeah, this hand is actually perfect. So definitely going to keep it. What we can do here is we're not going to play the Black Lotus just yet. We can play Black Lotus to get our Tezzeret into play next turn. And then with the blue, we can also have Tezzeret find Crucible of Worlds, and that's just going to be great for us. So that seems like the most obvious play here. So yeah, let's go ahead and do that. We did draw Sheldock Isle, but we don't really need to cast it here. So gonna go for Black Lotus, adding the 3 blue to our mana pool. And that's going to allow us to get Tezzeret. And now we can kind of decide what we want to do with this Tezzeret. But I think we want to just -3 it. So, yep, I'm going to do that. -3 to get the Crucible. We could also get Winter Orb, but our opponent, that's more for later in the game. Or actually, sorry, we boarded out the Crucible, so we might just want to get the Winter Orb here. We could also just get Vidalcan Shackles for a little bit later in the game. So let's think here. Winter Orb seems pretty powerful. I wasn't thinking about the Crucible of Worlds being boarded out. Alright, let's go ahead and get this Gruul Signet to start off. It's going to be... Gruul Signet is nice with the Tezzeret, just to be able to make a bunch of mana with it. And, yep, that's my bad. I was basically thinking, oh, we were thinking about boarding out the Crucible, and then we eventually did. And now we drew the specific cards, essentially, that punish us for having boarded out those cards. But that's okay. So here, we're still in a pretty good spot. Tezzeret with Hedron Archive is... I think we want to just get the Hedron Archive into play. So we can plus to untap the Gruul Turf. And we can then play Hedron Archive this turn and play Shelldock Isle as well. So we kind of pretty much whiffed on the Shelldock Isle, but that's okay. We're just going to put a Rashad Import under it and pass back. We do have a Mox we can find with the Tezzeret. We can also just make these into 5/5 creatures if we get up to the ultimate. Or we can just make a bunch of mana to play Sundering Titan. So, yeah, we can actually just potentially play Sundering Titan here. Although it's not as good as we would like it to be in the spot. Looking at the lands our opponent has access to at the moment. Trinket Mage also seems pretty good because it can find us our Hangerback Walker. So we've got a bunch of good options here. Let's go ahead and start with the Trinket Mage. Actually, we can start with the Strip Mine. There's really no need to let our opponent have all of these lands, since we've got we basically got a bunch of mana and our opponent does not. So I'm gonna go ahead and just get rid of this Lumbering Falls here. And now we can play Trinket Mage. And we're going to get the Hangerback Walker. The Mox Diamond is a card we definitely could search for with Tezzeret. We could also... we do have the Winter Orb still in our deck, but going to go ahead and get Hangerback Walker. And we can plus the Tezzeret. And this is going to allow us to now play the Hangerback Walker as a 3/3 this turn. So yeah, even though I forgot about the Crucible having sided out to make our lives a little bit more difficult, I think we're in a commanding spot here. Being able to play Tezzeret on turn 2 is just amazing. It looks like our opponent is going to have a play here. It's going to be Gideon, but actually really not that worried about Gideon, to be honest. So, and we actually drew Blightsteel Colossus here. So, we've actually got a few sweet plays we can make. Here we can get up to a total of 4. We can basically use these twice. So this is 4, 6, 9 mana total that we have access to. Although we also have another line which is to level up our Hangerback Walker and go after the Gideon that way. So what we could do is we could level up the Hangerback Walker and then untap it with our Tezzeret and attack our opponent's Gideon. So a bunch of good options, definitely. We can also simply down-tick Tezzeret as well. And between those, I think we still just want to... We definitely want to go after the Gideon here. So I like just attacking it with the Hangerback Walker and then following it up with the Sundering Titan. So we'll see if our opponent does chump block here or not. Okay, it is going to be a chump block. That's perfectly fine. So what we are now going to do is we can make 4 mana, then plus the Tezzeret on... Well, we can plus the Tezzeret on the Hedron Archive and the Hangerback Walker. And this is going to get us to Sundering Titan mana. So that worked out quite well. Our opponent still has this Gideon, but it's really not that threatening. And our board is just amazing. We're also making our way up towards Ultimating Tezzeret. So yeah, our opponent's just not in a good spot whatsoever. We are definitely a little bit further away from casting Shardless Agent as would be optimal. So I think we just want to go ahead and go after the Gideon here. One option though is to first play Shardless Agent before attacking. So we can also level up the Hangerback, then untap it. A few different choices here. Alright, let's go ahead and level up the Hangerback Walker. And then what we're going to do here is we are going to plus the Tezzeret to untap the Hangerback and the Hedron Archive. And we still have 1 mana in our mana pool. We don't really... We can just let that fizzle out and move to attackers here. And I like just going straight after Gideon with both the Hangerback Walker and the Sundering Titan. So we'll see what our opponent does about this. And it looks like it's just going to be Gideon dying, so that's fine. And we're going to follow up here with the Shardless Agent. That's going to grab Winter Orb. So that's not a bad one to now have. And we can play Temple. Spell Pierce, we can keep that on top in case we need it. And we're basically closing out the game at this point, unless I guess our opponent could have Natural Order, which would definitely be very bad for us. Although our opponent doesn't have a green creature, so yep, that's just going to be the match here. Definitely didn't play perfectly with the Tezzeret, but either way, got the job done.